Good evening.
I'm Tony. How are we supposed to, like, do we let everybody in, call the meeting to order, and then ask people to sign out?
Yes. Yeah, the only other way is, can you control them from your end?
Mm,
Can you?
like, can I put you in the waiting room?
Yeah. Yeah, you can put them in the waiting room.
Okay. I'll do that.
Hi,
What town are you in?
I'm in Hyannis. Yeah. The trick is the internet down here is not great at this house. So if anything goes awry, please forgive me.
You are forgiven in advance.
Mhm.
Thank you. All right.
What are you down in Hyannis for, Lauren?
My mom's birthday. It's a little delayed celebration. My sister, my mom, and I came down just for
Oh,
tonight.
right. You said that you were coming home.
Yes. So we're just having a little time together.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for putting that on hiatus for us for a few minutes.
Oh, of course. No, I was happy we could make that work.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Going. Hopefully my internet doesn't go down with the wind.
Oh, I know.
We'll all just do our best.
Right.
I'm just going to close the door in the room I'm in.
To move things along, we can call the meeting to order. Patty's joining us right now. And I think the the agenda reads that we'll call to order and then say the flag salute and then go to executive session. So I'll call the meeting to order at 7:00 p.m. on October 26th. If we could all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If somebody would like to make a motion to adjourn to executive session to approve the executive session minutes from October 12th to conduct a strategy session in preparation for negotiations with union personnel and to comply with the provisions of a specific MGL regarding an employee. You could just say per the agenda.
I'll make a motion for executive session per the description of the chair as documented in the agenda this evening.
And I'll
7:02. Sorry, who seconded it?
I did.
And we will reconvene to open session after we're done with the executive session. All in favor? By show of hands. Ms. Anderson, Ms. Sherlock, Ms. Harris, Ms. Down, and myself. So we'll adjourn to executive session. And I'll remove anybody else participating into the waiting room for the duration of the executive session. Kevin's in the waiting room. He would or would not participate in this discussion.
Madam Chair, that's completely up to you, but don't believe he's been in executive sessions in the past unless
Right.
specifically invited.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
Madam Chair, I
He
just
has
want to,
been once or twice before. I just didn't know for
Right.
the specific.
Madam Chair, I just want to make sure that Hannah Chadwick is not within earshot. She's the reporter.
No, I know. I put her in the waiting room.
I was like,
Thank you.
Yeah, she's in the waiting room. And I can actually send a message to those in the waiting room.
That's a great idea.
Anybody know why there's a reporter in
Just
the
because
meeting?
Hannah-
it's an open
Hannah
meeting.
Chadwick.
Yeah.
No, she's asking why. It's just because it's an open meeting.
Oh, okay. I've just never seen her here before. I've never seen
It was
any.
our last meeting too. Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we can get into that later.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was the headline, how confused we were.
Yeah.
Um,
Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the executive session minutes from October 12th?
I make a motion to approve the executive session minutes from the meeting on October 12th.
and I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes as written? Ms. Anderson, Ms. Garris, Ms. Sherlock, Ms. Day, and myself. Motion carries. So do you mind if I go out of order? Just because I'm not sure how long it's going to take us to discuss the employee and the student. And if we need to, we can dismiss to open session and then close to executive session to talk about NTA negotiations. So Tony sent us all like a quick description of wording that was proposed. It was right before the meeting, so I don't know if everybody received it. I can read it. He recommended the following: students who are the children of Nahant Public School employees may be admitted to the Johnson School under the following conditions, consistent with NSC policy JF and MGL 76, section 12. The school committee takes specific action to admit the non-resident child of NPS employee. Non-resident students shall be withdrawn should read from the GAS at the time the employee parent leaves the employee of the NPS. Non-resident students shall not be eligible for special needs services from the NPS, but may receive services at the expense of the district of residence. No transportation will be provided to non-resident students. A non-resident student may be dismissed for cause. A non-resident student must remain a student in good standing in the opinion of the school principal. The principal may consider attendance, behavior, and academic performance when determining the standing of a non-resident student. The decision of the school committee is final and binding. There shall be no appeal. The parent guardian of the non-resident students shall sign and agree to this procedure, acknowledging the conditions of the acceptance. One of the concerns that I had was I'll just share. So somebody approached me. It was not a conversation that I encouraged, but somebody basically approached me and made a statement that they understand that we're considering accepting a student from out of our district, and there were concerns that were raised about the student's behavior. So I think this is just an effort to, understandably, this child has obviously been through a huge stressful time. Obviously, I dismiss any further conversation and, acknowledge that I can't engage in anything along those lines, but, I did have that information. So I spoke with Tony, who spoke with the school, and Tony, you can put, you can jump in anytime, but who spoke with the school, and the student is also at the after school program. And it sounds like neither the school or the after school program have significant behavioral concerns. And then, in thinking about this situation, I guess the other thing that I had considered is, obviously the reason that we're moving forward quickly with this is because there's a concern about the safety of the student. And one of my questions was, in reading the parent/paraprofessional's letter and her, concerns with the safety of the student's current situation, if we're making the decision based upon, where the student would be safer, I don't know that I'm the best person to determine where the student would be, safest. I just don't think that that's in my expertise. Certainly it's important for us to keep the school a safe, setting for all students. And I would like to think that the school is safe and that we do a good job, but I don't know that I would be good at analyzing the safeness of one situation versus another. Other than, in Nahant, there's only one way out. And so if something did happen, that would obviously, make it more challenging to abduct a student. And obviously, for this family, having the child nearby is important to the mom, and I can understand that and the stress of the situation. So, yeah, Beth.
Can I back us up a little bit? One of my understandings for this meeting was we were going to get an update on the status of the student's father. And so I wonder if that update, if it was an email, I didn't see it. I apologize. And Tony, if you have an update that would possibly quell some of these fears, then we could probably know that before we kind of dive into that.
Certainly, Madam Chair, through you to the school committee. I spoke to the staff members several times since the last school committee meeting. 8 days ago, there was a dangerousness hearing. The individual had been required to re-enter the Commonwealth of Massachusetts at court order to stand before a judge regarding domestic abuse and violence charges. The individual was released from custody a week ago. So the individual is somewhere. I don't know where. The mother doesn't know where. I did speak at length. I'm just going to put a little details, if I may, Madam Chair, on your comments. I spoke at length with the social worker from the school that the child is attending now, and her comments are he's extraordinarily bright, a good kid, a little impulsive, never aggressive, never harmful to anyone, including himself. And then I spoke because of the information the chair led me to believe that some of our after-school program people had some concerns, or someone had concerns.
Yeah,
Don't
what's
know who.
after school?
I spoke to the director of the after-school program, who emphatically said that there has never been a problem with this particular student. Spoke again with the mother. She is not worried about violence against the child. She's not sure about violence against herself, but she is concerned about kidnapping.
Mhm.
The individual has been heard stating that he wants to take his son to a foreign country
Mhm.
to live. So that's the update I can give, and I hope I answered all your questions.
Does the individual, the father, have ties to another country?
I'm not sure.
I'm just wondering if that's an empty threat, or just a random thing that somebody who lives in this country may say, who, wants to make incendiary statements, or do they have ties to another country, which would make that far more believable,
I don't know that. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The country was specified. It wasn't just another country. It was the
Okay.
name of a country.
Okay,
It was a Central American country.
okay.
One thing I'm hearing from Gina is the lack of confidence as to our ability to determine what the safest environment is for this child. And I think that that's a sentiment that I share. I don't feel qualified either to determine if the Johnson School is actually safer for this child than Salem. I imagine that would be something that might be determined by law enforcement or this child's social or a caseworker, but I'm not qualified to even make that statement. But assuming that we cannot get a professional judgment of where this child is physically safest, I think what I would be basing a decision tonight on is, basically that I'm assuming that our school has hired this individual because this individual is qualified and an excellent candidate for the role that she was hired into at our school. And I would hate to think that someone couldn't have a job for which they are qualified and the best candidate because they believe that their family is unsafe if they accept that job. And that is what leads me to want to approve this placement of a student within our district. That I think it's an injustice to someone who's already been victimized if their perception is that they can't take the best job that gives them an opportunity for success because they perceive it to be an unsafe environment for their child if they do so without bringing their child there. I know that that's kind of riddled with layers and with judgments that can't necessarily be objectively proven, but I'm not sure that we can get objective data on this. I think this is something that's more of a judgment call. And I guess if I don't qualify to determine where this child is safest, my inclination is to then trust the parent to say, hey, look, in this particular circumstance, I feel re-injured as a victim and more vulnerable if I can't have my child nearby. Now, that might be an emotional response rather than something based on objective data about, physical risk. But I would hate to even emotionally re-victimize this person if we've hired them because we believe that they're a good fit for our school. So because of that judgment, that line of thinking, I'm inclined to approve this. And I think the wording that Tony provided in that email to me would be sufficient.
Michelle or Patty, do you want to say anything?
I agree with you, Gina, and I agree with you, Lauren. My only concern goes back to safety for everyone involved. And I know that we have some safety measures in place at the school, but what else can we do to increase safety? Can we work with the police department in Nahant and the team in Salem that's providing these recommendations? And that's a question to you, Tony.
Madam Chair, through you, we are already working with the police department. The police department is aware of these circumstances that this staff member and this child are in. They are very much aware of the potential. Certainly, I can speak to the parent if the school committee approves this concept about making sure that the child is walked into this school in the beginning of the school and is with an adult after school. My understanding of this from being in an urban environment, they are the two times when children are typically abducted. It's rarely during the school day, although it does happen. Everything happens. But it's usually immediately before, immediately after. So I can ask the mother to make sure that she is with the child at that time. The police officer is typically here at drop-off and pickup, which is one of the reasons why in my opinion, the parent feels so safe here. That, in a larger environment or a private environment, there typically aren't local police officers there every day at drop-off. They're there when they can be. They're doing the best they can, but our police department, based on the leadership since I've been here, have been emphatic about having a police officer here.
Tony, in my schools, when there's a person that has the potential for harm, the partner is usually added to a restraining order. And we have put set a picture around saying this person cannot be here. Are we allowed to do that in Nahant?
I don't know. I
Okay.
certainly will ask. If we can, we will.
Okay.
And if we can't, we may do it anyway, privately, and so that we're all aware.
Yep.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Certainly, we do it for individuals who have been prosecuted and found guilty of inappropriate behavior with minors.
Yep.
So I have to warn all of us. I think I'm actually talking to myself more than anybody. At this point, this is an allegation.
Right.
Okay.
It can quickly move to a proven fact, but at this point, I don't believe it is. So that's why I answered
Important distinction. Yep.
that's why I didn't say yes.
Okay.
I want to make sure. I want to talk to the police chief about it.
Great.
When someone buzzes at the door, and Sherry lets them into the antechamber before the school, can Sherry see their face before she admits them into that antechamber?
Yes.
There's a camera in that bell, right?
Just
Yes.
making sure. Oh, yeah. Okay.
And if she can't, then the ones that don't have cameras, she doesn't open them. She sends them around the front unless she knows the person. And we're so small, she not only knows their names, but she probably knows their voices.
This is true.
And when they go around the front, even when they come into the first alcove, they can't get through the next set of doors unless she actually buzzes them.
Yeah.
So she's
right,
looking
right.
at the guest, and they can't get in. They can only go out.
I'm just making sure they couldn't even get, I want to protect her too, as of course you do too. Just thinking about her ability to see them before they are right in front of her. That's, thank you.
If I may, the one other suggestion I would have for safety, if you are already talking with the police, would just be an extra, not a on-site presence, but maybe even a patrol of a police car around during recess time, because that would be another potential, just seeing the kids, and some kids extend out, in the forest playground, and, you just, there's a lot of places over there. But I in looking at this, trying to exclude emotion, just for myself. That's how I try to look at things. I think for a hardship in general, that this would be appropriate, given that the district wasn't responsible for additional services. I think for people in the town to bear that responsibility, in my opinion, would not be fair to the town. So I appreciate the language in there about there being a requirement for the residential districts to take that.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, the attorney, if I may, the attorney's position on this is that we have to communicate with the sending district and the commissioner. That's only if we wanted the sending districts to give us money, and we don't.
Okay, that was my question too.
And I don't want to go into a huge discussion about this, but let me just take 30 seconds. We're a held harmless district. That means that the amount of money we get for our district is frozen at the number of students that were in the district in 1994, and we're 100 students below that. So this student coming to us doesn't bring any money with us, nor does it take any money away from Salem. So
I'm sorry, Tony.
that's okay. So all I have to do is, if you decide yes, I'll simply write an informative letter to the commissioner and to the Salem superintendent, informing them that a resident of their community is going to school here. It's that simple.
So
And
Tony-
technically, we don't even have to do it, but it's good form to do it.
It is good form. Tony, can I ask a couple questions about that? So I'm also in favor of this, but I do have some clarifying points. One is that by saying that the school committee is going to approve independent of the circumstances, we're saying that it's our choice whether to admit a child of a staff member. How do we keep this from potentially opening the floodgates, or do you think that's an unreasonable thought? Like, maybe we won't open the floodgates, or
I mean, I think at this point, with the way it's written, it allows us to continue to, on a case-by-case basis. I think at another date, we had sort of preliminarily said, is this something that we want to consider making available as a point of,
Yep.
Trying to entice staff. But I think that the way it is right now, we could continue to take them case by case. Which existed prior to tonight discussion. There was the opportunity that we could make this special exception at any time.
My worry is that there might come, because, I mean, if we all think that we're probably going to go the route of letting teachers do this, more often, then that's one thing, fine. But it does open us up to like potential for people saying that we're discriminatory if we're, for whatever reason, we don't allow somebody else's kid to come, right? And so I just tried to draw that out to the next conclusions. And then my second related thing is with the money, if we're gonna forego tuition dollars from Salem, we also just want to make sure that we're not setting a precedent there that we wouldn't be able to afford down the road. I've been caught up with that. I have also done a tuition-free deal, as I call it, with some students that made a lot of sense to stay in Phoenix, but then all of a sudden, like 3 students became 7 very quickly. And it caught me a little off guard. So I just wanted to offer that out.
Yeah, I mean, there is a potential. I mean, I come from an urban district that we embraced staff members, students attending our schools because they were wonderful role models and they really added value to our school district. If this school district does not have to do this, either in this case or in the future, but that's completely up to the school committee. I'd say that typically, because we're only in elementary school, and more than likely it would be minimized because teachers are probably more interested in where their children go to middle school and especially high school.
Yeah.
That's typically what drives that.
Right,
Yeah.
and this is just for the elementary school. This doesn't obviously extend to Swampscott. We already made that clear.
Yep. I actually think it would save us hassle if we made this a policy quickly down the road, not tonight, you know?
Yeah.
And I also don't know what I don't know about that. So I wanna, but from what I can see right now, it seems like it would probably save us potential for grief if we just let staff members' kids come. If you don't think that there's gonna be any downside to that, Tony, or anyone else, is kind of where my thought process is going. And
Yeah, the only thing I would add, Madam Chair, if to what I've already written, I would put in class size controls
yeah,
because and displacement objectives. No non-resident student can ever displace any resident student for any
Right,
reason.
like
You know,
if
that
it's a
kind of-
large class and it ends up tipping us over to having 2 classes, that would obviously hurt our bottom line pretty significantly.
and I'm not proposing that we do it tonight. I think there's more time.
No, right.
But
We can add
I
it to
understand
executive
it.
session for an
Yeah.
upcoming meeting.
Yep.
So do we need to vote in executive session or should we just vote in open session at the appropriate time on the agenda?
I would suggest you do both, Madam Chair,
Okay,
because the details of this are different. The
right,
secretary has the document that you approved for the details, which would be in the executive session. In the public session, as you remember, we were going to be much less detailed. You were going to, or someone was going to make a motion to accept a non-resident student due to extenuating circumstances.
does anybody want to write
At
that down?
this time.
Does anybody want to write that down to make a motion?
I will.
All right.
And then,
Um,
you know, if it's possible, if it's not, that's fine. But if it's possible in open session, if this could be the first item, that would be great. I have to leave the meeting very early tonight.
Yeah,
And if that's okay, I totally understand. I just wanted to.
I mean, I think Tony had suggested against it last time, just not to bring a lot of attention to it, but if you don't feel strongly about that, I'm happy to take the motion out of order.
Whatever's best.
Madam Chair, I don't know what the vote's going to be in executive session, but frankly, if the vote is 5-0 in
Gotta pass.
executive session, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
I think unless,
I would once again suggest it be kept in order so that we're not making
Putting
the
a lot of-
implication of what
yeah.
was done in executive
Right.
session.
right.
Sure.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, as a reminder, we're going back to executive session
Yeah,
after the
I think.
meeting for labor management.
Is everybody okay with that? Just because I don't think that we can, it's appropriate to keep everybody waiting so we can talk about NTA negotiations, and also our next meeting's not for 3 weeks. So it's obviously important that we don't table the NTA negotiations because that would sort of make it difficult for Tony to move forward.
Mhm.
So would somebody like to make a motion? And I think I mean, you don't have to, you know, read all the verbiage from the email from 4:42 this afternoon. But maybe, you know, the verbiage that's in this email, plus, you know, a
But it-
point about not affecting the ratio, you know, the,
Oh, that part.
to like pushing us to extend to 2 class sizes. I guess as the class size can accommodate, might be appropriate way of wording it as the last point.
So, I have copied what Tony had sent over
Mhm.
in that email to this.
As long as everybody's okay with that wording,
Are you gonna do it, Michelle?
because it'll be in the executive session minutes.
Oh,
But this is not what we're reading for the motion in open meeting.
oh, okay.
Right. Yeah. So for the executive session minutes, you wanted me to also add a clause at the end. So point 9 would be acceptance shall be
Dependent upon the
Right.
student ratio allowing
Something, about-
as the student ratio. Sorry.
something about the class size, right? Not displacing a resident.
Acceptance shall be dependent upon the class size and shall not displace a
Non-resident. And maybe dependent upon the class size remaining 25 to 1 or less. Because that's when it goes to 2 classes, right? When it gets above 25 students in a class.
But can't we, but that, you never know if that might change. So I thought we should just put class, shall be dependent upon class size as determined by its school administration. Then it
And-
leaves up to whatever
Okay.
school administration,
That's fine.
non-displacement of any resident student and student staff ratio of the school.
shall not displace
A Nahant resident.
resident and what was,
Resident student.
sorry, what was, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. So here's what I have. Acceptance shall be dependent upon the class size as determined by school administration, shall not displace a Nahant resident. And is there one final thing?
Do we need to say anything about student ratio, or is that covered by class size, Tony?
I think that's covered by class size.
How about if we made it positive? How about if we said, shall not displace any Nahant resident student, nor and acceptance shall create a class size which can be accommodated typical with the typical ratios for the Johnson Elementary School, something like that. Make it positive.
And all of this is always discretion of the school committee. So, you know,
Right,
I think we have discretion to decide what that is at that time.
exactly.
Collaboration.
Because 25 is a rational number everywhere, but here, I mean,
Mhm.
that would be big.
Yeah, okay. So, I'm saying now, acceptance shall not displace any Nahant resident student, and acceptance shall create a class size that can be accommodated with the typical ratios of the Johnson School.
Yeah, that sounds
Yes.
good.
Yeah. And when we go to the policy, if you choose to open this up to others, I'll work on that with you so that,
Number, yeah.
I mean, this is only going to be in a letter.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not that, I don't mean only, but it's not going to be a public document unless somebody asks for it.
Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll
No,
try.
you don't have to read all of it. Please don't.
Oh, no, I'll try. You mean right now, make a motion? Right, okay. I'd like to make a motion to accept a non-resident student due to special circumstances into the Johnson School of Nahant Public Schools. Acceptance will be dependent upon,
You don't have to read the whole thing.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Only notes.
as per everything that we outlined,
All right.
unless everybody wants
There you
her to
go.
read the whole thing.
As pursuant to the conversation we just had.
I mean, it's all in writing, so I don't think that we need to.
Who's seconding me? Patty, go for it.
I'm seconding. Lauren's seconding as well.
I'll third.
So we'll do a roll call. Ms. Anderson? Ms. Karas? Aye. Just say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Ms. Tam?
Aye.
Ms. Sherlock?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. And the motion passes. So if somebody could during open session, we'll do it during business from the committee. If somebody could make a motion to accept a non-resident student based upon special circumstances.
Gina, where we have a reporter amongst our midst, do we want to say due to special circumstances? I feel that's just opening ourselves up for an investigation. Can we just say to accept a non-resident student and leave it at that?
Yes, you could.
So,
Or does-
and I think it will be important to say, I make a motion to accept a non-resident student that is the child of a staff member. Right?
Okay.
Sure, and leave it at
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
And there's not going to be any discussion.
Yeah.
I'm opening the meet. Can I have a motion to adjourn to the open session at 7:37?
to return to executive session, Madam Secretary.
So motion to adjourn at
7:37. To adjourn back to executive session when the open session is done.
Yeah, to adjourn to open session and to return to executive session
When the
after,
open,
after the open session.
could somebody make that motion? You don't have to say it again.
I make a motion
All right,
to
second,
return to open session and to return to this session after open session is completed.
correct. Second,
second.
Patty, all in favor? All right, so I'm gonna admit everybody.
And everyone, I'm going to sign off now. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lauren.
And
Hi, welcome back, everyone. So we'll move on to the reading of approval of minutes from October 12th. If any member from the committee would like to make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from October 12th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes dated October 12th, 2021.
Can I have a second?
Second
please?
that,
Ms. Anderson. All in favor of approving the minutes as written? It's unanimous, motion passes. We can move on to the bill roll from today. Mr. Prantasi, could you walk us through the bills for tonight's meeting?
I would be happy to, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. The bills this month total $40,134.14. They are extremely typical at this time of the year. As is typical, we are purchasing a lot of educational materials. Teachers come back, they use the materials we have for a while, and they say to themselves and to the principal, we don't have X, Y, and Z, and this is the time of the year that we really stockpile that. There are some maintenance items on the bill roll. And the one thing I would like to point out to you is that the Michael Russo Plumbing and Heating, Inc. bill for $9,800 is for the commercial hot water heater and circulator pipe pump that we had put in. That item was dated 2007. So actually, for a hot water heater. We got a pretty long run out of it. The reason I bring that up is that money is money that I encumbered from fiscal 2021 funds.
Mhm.
So it won't be taken from the current year's funding. At the end of the year, Mass General Law permits a superintendent with the approval of the town finance officer to predict clearly expenditures that haven't been completed yet. So for example, the HVAC project and the hot water heater were in there.
Mhm.
And there were a couple of smaller items. So that money has already been set aside by the town accountant out of the 2021 funds. So I think that's important for you to know because, you know, it's $10,000. But again, we already have the money. It's set aside from the 2000 fiscal 21 funds. So, Madam Chair, without further ado, I would ask you and respectfully ask a member of the school committee to make a motion to approve $40,134.14 worth of expenditures as detailed in the bill roll of October 26th.
I'll make a motion to approve $40,134.14 as outlined in the bill roll dated October 26, 2021.
I'll second the motion made by Ms. Karas.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor of passing the bill roll as outlined? Ms. Anderson, Ms. Karas, Ms. Sam, and myself. Motion carries. We can move on to the COVID-19 update. Mr. Parentozzi, I know you sent us an email with the updated information. Do you mind just walking through the updates?
Absolutely not. I would be pleased to. It's all good news for Nahant. First of all, there is one case of COVID in the town of Nahant at the present time. In the month of October, there were only 4 cases in the entire community. There are none related to the school whatsoever, nor have there been for the entire month. So the protocols that you guide us with have worked really, really well. You also got an update from me about the mask requirement that I just got this afternoon at about 1:30. The Commissioner of Education has extended the mask requirement for all 5-year-olds through graduation until January 15th, 2021. And as part of that recommendation is and I'll quote it, it is strongly recommended that students younger than age 5 also wear a mask in school, unquote. And once again, very in line and consistent with your guidelines. So thank you. I also sent you a document that is called the Johnson School Protocols for Symptomatic Individuals and Close Contacts. So in a previous meeting, we agreed that we would have testing in the program called Test and Stay.
Yeah.
Now we are going to be adding, with your support, testing for symptomatic testing. And these are the 2 biggies that we need to keep our staff and our students in school. The clarity that needs to be held by the community, which there will be a letter that I send tomorrow, is that this is only for cases that are in school. So if a student is identified as a close contact because another student tests positive, these protocols will be in place. They are not in place if someone's in a community recreational place or an activity, and the public health department determines that there are close contacts there who go to school here.
Right.
That-
I mean, and it's important to differentiate that the it's not just that the close contact has to be in the school, it's that the actual action of the close contact has to be in school. So, you know, if Johnny sits next to Mary in, you know, the second grade, and then outside of school, Johnny and Mary are hanging out together and they're close contact, that doesn't count. You know, that they would have to quarantine as per the, you know, guidelines. But if they were a close contact in the second grade at the Johnson School, maybe because they weren't following the guidelines. I mean, really, people shouldn't be close contacts if they follow the guidelines that we have recommended,
right.
but we understand that, you know, every once in a while circumstances come up. So if they're close contact in school, that's when it would apply.
Yeah, the protocols that we've established with your guidance should reduce the number of close contacts from any source
Mhm,
because we're staying 3 feet apart.
mhm.
And then if we do have close contacts or we do have symptomatic students, then we can, under these two sets of circumstances, we can keep them in school more often and for longer periods of time, obviously until the testing is positive. And at that point, a different set of circumstances are put in place. The negative testing has to be done regularly, obviously, you know, 7 consecutive days. Interestingly, if it's a weekend, it's only 5 tests, but if it's not, you know,
Well, it's always only 5 tests because there's always going to be, either it's going to be Monday through Friday, or it's going to be, you know, Wednesday through Friday, and then the following Monday, Tuesday, because it's 7 consecutive days.
yeah. There
yeah.
is a scenario where a parent could get a test on a different day, you know, on a weekend, but that won't count.
Right. I just want to clarify with the symptomatic testing and make sure that the school nurse and the, you know, Deb Murphy agreed that we should enroll in it. I guess I mean, it's really clear that symptomatic testing is for students who develop symptoms during the school day. I mean, I didn't bring it up as, you know, suggesting that we enroll in it because I've been concerned that this will give, you know, parents free rein to just send their sniffly, coughing student into school. And then, you know, oh, well, he can get tested at school. I mean, it's really important that if a student shows up at school symptomatic, they should be sent home. Right?
That's correct.
Yeah, I still share the concern about the antigen test not being very sensitive at that stage as well.
Like if they're newly symptomatic.
Yeah, the guidelines require a medical determination, if that's the right word, by the school nurse, and that's important, just for the reason you said. Madam Chair, I'm going to answer both specifically and globally. Yes, both support this wholly,
Okay.
and globally, I would never bring you something
Right. No,
without
I
the
know.
support of the individuals who are experts in whatever we're talking about. It wouldn't even be before you.
Right.
Actually, it was the public health nurse who brought this up and started us investigating it and thinking about it. It's a good thing. It's
okay.
really a good thing.
All right. Do we have to vote upon it? I don't think we do.
No,
Yeah.
it's just one more tool in our tool belt
Yeah.
to keep our school open and kids in school. And the more we can do, and the more that happens, and staff. And because this covers staff too.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Prantazzi? And they're still being followed up with a PCR.
Yeah, so parents and guardians and staff members will be getting a letter as early as tomorrow. Actually, we had a faculty meeting today, and the school nurse went over it with the faculty a little bit, but it's always good to get it in writing too.
Okay.
Madam Chair, the only update I have for the solar energy and LED projects is that the LED project, the materials are still on order. And today I told the supervisor that all of the employees that would be in the school at any time would have to be quarried. Even if they're here, quote, on second shift when our student body is not present, because one never knows. Plus, we have the after school program.
Yeah. Good. Okay, do you want to go through the facility update?
Certainly, I'll go very quickly, Madam Chair. Today, we began preparing for becoming an emergency shelter in case the storm that we are dealing with overnight becomes extremely problematic, whether it be because of flooding, wind, a loss of power, whatever. So we have the sheltering trailer is parked on the Flash Road side of the building, and all the phone numbers and contact numbers have been exchanged, and the custodians are ready to rock and roll if they have to. Hopefully not. Hopefully this will be one of those cases where the better prepared you are, the less you had to be prepared. So we'll hope for the best. The hot water heater and circulator has been installed. As I mentioned, the HVAC is functioning, but we're still waiting for one more electronic part that the wires didn't quite mesh. And other than that, the building's in terrific shape. I do, Madam Chair, do you want me to move right through?
Yes, please.
Okay, material shortages and cost increases. You are probably very much aware, if you're putting gasoline in your vehicle, that things are escalating. I understand the cost of some materials are coming down. For example, I was talking to somebody who's a contractor yesterday, and they told me that the cost of wood seems to have peaked. We'll find out. The good news is that of all the things we buy to keep our children and our staff functioning in an educational institution, the only thing we're having trouble getting right now is the food trays for lunch.
Mm.
Our food service director likes and prefers a particular kind. We can't seem to find those, so we have orders out for 3 different kinds. Whichever one comes in, we will we'll order those so that we have them. Hopefully that's temporary, but one never knows. Other than that, we're in really good shape. Mr. Andrews told the staff members that we have plenty of paper, plenty of materials, plenty of art supplies, et cetera, at this point. So we're in a lot better shape than a lot of people. And I'll keep you informed to the contrary. If something happens that we're having difficulty finding things, we'll let you know. We do belong to a purchasing consortium at the state level, and we also have a very good record with a couple of local providers. So I'm thinking we will get, we pay our bills and we pay them relatively quickly. So I'm thinking that we'll get materials perhaps a little ahead of the curve. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is the preschool voucher process. About a month ago, I believe I talked to you about this and mentioned that it was a pretty intensive process. Well, I have been fingerprinted and registered with the early childhood department, as are 4 staff members who work with the preschool. Their fingerprints have been taken and sent in, and we're waiting for a approval. What this will mean is that in our preschool, which is a parent pay-as-you-go program, parents and guardians who have difficulty paying for the service can get vouchers to pay for them. I can tell you it's labor intensive to go through the process. We're going to have to be inspected. We had to be re-fingerprinted, but it's a really good thing for any of the families who need their children to come to the early childhood program, the preschool program, and are finding it financially challenging. So I'm pleased to do it, even though it's is going to take a while, and it's pretty labor intensive.
That's great. Once the groundwork is set, though, it's less labor intensive to sustain it. Is that true or not true?
Well, the early childhood programs are directly tied to federal funding.
Mhm.
And the thing that makes it intensive for us is that we are a public school system. So everything we do goes through DESE. So everything we do through DESE, we have to redo it
Or
for the
federal.
voucher,
Okay.
the
Mhm.
voucher program. So for example, I've been fingerprinted and quarried. I had to have it done again.
Yeah.
And we get inspected by the public health department and the building department. We have to get inspected again. So, and I think without making this a negative, let's make it a positive. Because of some of the issues that have happened in early childhood facilities,
Hmm.
they are extraordinarily careful.
Cautious, yeah. No, I mean, it'd be great to make the program, available to all families if possible, despite financial, means.
Yeah,
Thank you for doing that.
you're very welcome.
Can I just say one comment about the material shortages? Was there any discussion at all, and this is just the environmentalist in me, was there any discussion at all about reusing? Like, like back in the day when we were in elementary school, we had the reusable trays that we used for school.
Yeah, we have had that conversation actually. The problem is we don't have the
to clean
space
them.
nor the dishwasher that you
Clean
need
them.
at 180 degrees Fahrenheit in
Yeah,
order to reuse the trays.
that's too bad.
So we would have to spend, I'm guessing 20,000 up front.
That would take a long time to make back up.
Right.
Yeah, that's too bad. Okay. Mr. Andrews, would you like to give the principal's report?
I'd be happy to, Madam Chair. Thank you. I was monitoring the conversation and seeing when you were rejoining, so I apologize if
no
I was delayed in joining you. So I have a few areas I'd like to talk about tonight. First is on November 1st, I want to remind parents that we do have our Professional Development Day. So it will be no school for students, but teachers will be joining us, and we'll be looking at safety care, which is a process where teachers learn to, and paraprofessionals learn to de-escalate students who are having a difficult time, and how to, release tension and kind of rejoin the class with the students that are needing help. We'll also be working at the Collins Writing Program. And this is a program that we've had at the school for many years, but we have many new staff members joining us. And we also want to look at how we can integrate the writing into areas such as science and social studies. And so we'll have a workshop on that area. And then also revisiting IXL and how we can use IXL to differentiate and really target students who are above grade level or at grade level or even below grade level and really need to practice their math skills. I look at IXL as an alternative to the worksheets in the past where you had to look at them, correct them, grade them. IXL gives students a chance to practice their regular math skills. And this is an area that we see everyday math doesn't have as much everyday practice on, say, times tables or rudimentary mathematics computation. And so IXL really provides that. And so we'll be looking at how we can use IXL to implement students learning their basic math facts and also applying them to real world problems. I'd like to let you know about a few donations that we've had. We had two large donations from Dakota Tree Services for the Forest Playground. And students have been, and staff have been spreading the mulch and putting in areas that can protect the plants that we have in the forest playground. And a second donation that I want to let you know about is 30 sprout growing kits from Home Depot. We plan to roll those out and have students compete to identify plants, and those that win will get a sprout growing kit. And these include a tray, seeds, and a little bit of a cocoa core that they can water and grow mustard seeds or broccoli sprouts, and actually eat them before winter starts. I want to thank the PTO for the Halloween bash that we had this past weekend. A huge success, something that students always look forward to. I think it went off fantastically, and I want to thank the PTO and also the student council and Camilla Brett for helping out and making it happen. We have a new group on the PTO this year, and they've really taken the reins and moved forward with a lot of the traditions that students look forward to. And that's much appreciated in keeping all the spirit alive and everything that happens throughout the school year. And finally, I want to let you know about an event called Art, Nature, and Nahant. This is an event that the school took part in last year with Jim Walsh and others up on East Point. We did drumming, and there was a maypole and other events. It's going to be expanding this coming school year, and we're looking forward to participating in it again, and perhaps adding some science components to it, and maybe a science exhibit. And they'll be on May 14th and May 15th. And below that, I have a number of events upcoming, including when the report cards will be coming out and some days off from school. And I'd be happy to take any questions if you have any. And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, Mr. Andrews, that I thought the Halloween bash, this was my first one ever as a Nahant resident. And the whole family had a blast, and my extended family came into town for it. And I've never spent so much money on tickets in my life. And it was just magical. I thought it was one of the best community events I've ever been to. I really, really loved it.
Well, it's a lot of volunteer hours to make it happen, and just the spirit of it is wonderful to see. Absolutely.
I vow to win trunk or treat next year. I didn't win this year, but I'm going to go for it now that I know that the bar is high.
So we'll move on to public comment. You know, I had a couple of community correspondence that I wanted to share. It's a little bit out of order in regards to new business use of the facilities. So I think I'm just going to mention it here because it is community correspondence. There were two members of the community that approached us as a school committee about using the school building. One was in regards to the after-school programs through the PTO. They're currently taking place outside. And so during inclement weather, they have to cancel, particularly the science activities that they do outside. And they've had to, you know, cancel on a couple of occasions. So the concern is that, you know, as they cancel and reschedule, it's going to go later and later, and there's more of an opportunity that might be too cold, or just the weather won't be, you know, adequate to have the activities outside. And then the other community correspondence was from, in regards to the youth basketball, you know, using the facility. So I know that, you know, use of the facilities is later on in our agenda. I actually don't know the appropriate way to, if we should discuss it now, or as long as that's okay with everybody else, it might be worth discussing right now. Mr. Andrews, I don't know if you've also, because I know that the facilities requests typically, go through you. So I don't know if you've had other requests from the community to use the facilities.
Sure.
Outside of those 2 requests.
Well, Madam Chair, I haven't had any other additional requests, but I did have folks reach out to me, and we have a standing policy about having guests in the school.
Mhm.
And so I did refer them to the school committee, as that's more the purview of, if they want to look at what the decision is, this would be the format to bring it in.
And I think that there's a couple of different ways we can go about this. We could fully open up the facilities and discuss that as an option, to prior to the pandemic. Or we could also consider opening up the facilities, for certain groups, and in particular for groups that are already, using the facilities. Like probably the best example is the students that are already in school for after school activities, because that wouldn't really increase exposure within the school building.
Right. The group is typically looking about having students that are already at the school, using the school, and then adding some other adults that are not at the school to help with that program.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Mhm.
at this time, students who are at the Johnson School are here during the day in pretty much cohort groups during the day, and then those cohort groups change after school. So it's conceivable that having students who go to Johnson School in other types of activities are consistent with what we're doing now. So you have a cohort during the school day, you have a cohort after school that changes everyone. The after school groups aren't the same. So having another cohort of Johnson students in an activity in the evening or in the afternoon isn't inconsistent with what we're doing now. It's just one more layer. The issue that I would suggest may be different is, how do we know that the adults who are not under our supervision are going to wear masks? They are going to keep the children at an appropriate distance from each other, and or that they've been vaccinated. I don't have an answer to that. I'm not saying no, yes, maybe so. I'm just telling you what my thought process is. For that reason, we have not yet opened it up.
Mhm.
It would also seem inconsistent that the only parents and guardians of our own children who are invited into our school at this time are those that must be here under the special education regulations. And we have been directed by the Commissioner of Education to allow those meetings to take place. All the other parents are dropping their children off at the door or picking them up at the doors. So if we allow some parents to come in if they're running an activity, and yet not to allow a parent to come in for their own child, that seems inconsistent to me.
I mean, to your point about, you don't know if parents are going to comply with the regulations, but it is a tight community. And, I think that if we were to allow other, groups to come in with students that are already at the Johnson School, like being their parents or guardians or coaches or whomever that are with the students, it would be under the understanding that they have to comply with the guidelines of the Johnson School, which we don't mandate vaccination, nor do we allow people that are unvaccinated to not wear masks. Like our current guidelines at the school is that all individuals are wearing masks in the school for now. And so, if we do allow use of the school by our students and their parents or guardians for, whatever these occasions are, they would have to comply with the guidelines. And if they're not complying with the guidelines, their activity can be terminated within the Johnson School. I mean, that's just how I see it. And, I agree with you that, this might be a natural segue to allow parents to participate in school activities. Whether it be like volunteering for a classroom activity or, anything along those lines, that would seem to make sense at this juncture. But I guess I'd be more inclined to do a midway amendment to the facilities use and not necessarily open it to all groups at this point. That would be my inclination.
Yeah, I think, the school committee's decisions to this point from the very, very beginning of a year ago, August, have been right on. Oftentimes leading the Commonwealth in common sense and safe practices. The only thing I am going to say in response is during the school day, we have an administrative structure that can control mask wearing. I'm not sure how that's going to be controlled at 6 p.m. I just don't know. The only person in the building may be a custodian. So as compared to a principal and a teacher and a department of, a special education director and a superintendent. So there's obviously got to be a lot of trust in the adults who are in, and by the way, I'm not saying I distrust them. I'm simply saying the structure is not in place to make sure that takes place. And we've been so good for so long. I would hate to have, a hotspot develop now. But, it's the school committee's decision, and whatever you decide, we will administrate.
Is there a time in which there are administrators there? For example, if there was a PTO activity right after the close of school, like say 2:30, if we started it off with, 2:30 to 4 for school community only, would that be satisfactory to have that kind of oversight?
Madam Chair, if I may, I volunteer myself on Tuesdays and Thursdays to stay and to be the individual. If that will help facilitate the oversight, which I'm assuming it would.
I'd be happy. No, let's see. Am I on? No.
You're
Yes, I'd
not.
be happy to pick up the other days.
Done deal.
Do any other school committee members have any comments? And this is, we are during community correspondence, so if anybody else would like to make a comment, you could type your name into the chat and your address, and make a comment. The only other, I'll take a quick opportunity just to read the other community member that reached out to me was in regards to the use of the gym for basketball. I'm just looking through the email. I guess the question was, does the limitation get reviewed on a regular basis? And if things open up, is there a chance of being revisited, or is the gym use something that is unlikely anytime soon? So there was the request there. And I didn't get the sense that it was Saturday morning basketball, so I don't get the sense that that would be in the after school hours.
I do not volunteer for Saturday morning.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Erin Flaherty from 52 Castle Road. Do you want to make a comment?
Sure. Thank you. And I appreciate everyone considering the request. Just to give some context, so we had scheduled some after-school enrichment programs on Monday and Thursday, the Science Club, and it was a popular turnout for that. We have, I think, 27 people signed up for that with the breakdown of Monday and Thursday. And unfortunately, with the rain the last few weeks on Monday, we've had to cancel. And also just with the activities themselves, we've realized it's really complicated not to have access to the bathrooms and to water and things like that. We're at a point where, one of the programs on Thursdays has run 3 times, so there's only 3 sessions left, and the one on Mondays has now only run 1 time, so there's 5 weeks left. We don't intend to run any additional after-school enrichment programs just because of the limitations on the building, but we're hoping to get through these 2 programs just because the parents have already submitted payment, and to be honest, the kids are actually really enjoying it, and it is an enriching activity. It's a science club, so it would just be really helpful if we could facilitate the remaining sessions, the 5 sessions on Monday and then the 3 sessions on Thursday in the building. And just some additional context, it's on Monday, it is 2 parents, Erica Pratt and Aura Bilius. And then on Thursdays, it's Erica Pratt and either myself or Gina. So it would be a really limited group of parents in the building. And I think the request to provide proof of vaccination would be something that could be requested as well. And we certainly will wear masks and maintain space. I was thinking maybe one of the classrooms, like the one with the PTO closet in it, is pretty large and would allow some distance with the 15 kids that are registered.
Do any school committee members have any questions?
Just that my son came home talking about this program yesterday and asked why I had not registered him because he's a scientist, and didn't I know that? And
Well, it would be great to be able to offer it again. I
I
think,
know, you'll be first up next time. So
yes,
I'm a fan.
exactly.
I'm a fan, unless there's some other reason that I don't see, but I'm a fan. Thank you for doing this for them.
Would anybody like to make a motion in terms of facilities use?
I'll make a motion to use the Johnson School facilities specifically for the after-school enrichment programs, as we discussed.
A second.
So it'll be for students and their the parents or guardians or the enrichment facilitators, basically.
What about PTO?
Well,
Would that be included? I know it's not. Would we include that in that group?
what do you mean?
Right, in terms of like PTO members being able to use the facility, was that not?
Yeah, I think that was outlined because it'll be students and their guardian or the activity leaders.
Exactly.
Madam Chair, I think, Ms. Karas, tell me if I'm wrong, but is the question about having PTO meetings in the building typically? Yeah, I think that's a different question, Madam Chair.
Oh.
I also think it should be
I think the
noted that
motion that Ms. Dan was
all-
making is to extend the facility use to students and their guardians after school, and those after school hours until 4 o'clock.
The students and the instructors, I guess, for the enrichment program.
Madam Chair, if I may, I think it'd be important to identify exactly who we are recognizing who can use the facility, because all parents and teachers are by default members of the PTO.
Mhm.
And so we're talking about just changing it completely to anybody in the school community, essentially, who would want to. So I think we're going into it asking for one particular program, and now we're changing it to more programs, which if you'd like to do that, let me know. And I'll just make sure that we are understanding the changes.
So I have it to be enrolled students in the enrichment programs and instructors.
Madam Chair, I was under the impression that the question on the table was whether the current science program could finish this session indoors, and I believe 5 sessions were mentioned. Are we expanding it beyond that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one point of discussion is whether or not we would extend, access to the facilities to parents and guardians also beyond those that are allowed per, the ordinance for special education. So that would allow parents or guardians to come and volunteer in the school activities. But if the committee just wants to consider, allowing this one particular activity to completion, then we can readdress any modifications to the facilities use in the future.
Seems like we should do a case-by-case basis at this point. In this program that Ms. Flaherty was talking about feels different than like something new, because this was already approved and happening, and just needs to be extended, if I understand it correctly. Whereas like the basketball and the other programs seem to be newer things, which we could decide now because they were raised by the community now. But, those types of things might be different than like if a group of adults wanted to come in and use the gym for some purpose, right? That wasn't connected to our student body. And we may approve that, but that would just be a different thing, right?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think the difference between Ms. Flaherty's request is we know there are students, we know who the parents are. The school committee has a guarantee that they would wear masks and their vaccination status would be known to the principal and myself. Once we get into basketball, first of all, the students are from both towns, Swampscott and Nahant. And oftentimes the parents are parents from Swampscott. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It just vastly expands the circle of potential close contact and potential communication of COVID-19. So I would argue for this, at this time, this program only. And the thing I don't feel comfortable with expanding it right now is I don't have a process in place, like a checklist. The parent in charge of the adult in charge of the program has to provide the following information. I'm sure I can do it in a quick fashion, but I don't have it ready. Like I want to know where the students go to school. If it's a recreation basketball league, for example, a student can go to a private school. They don't have to be just Swampscott or Nahant. They can be in another school. And I think ultimately we do want to do that. We want to open up our community facility. But I would argue for a step-by-step slow process because we've been so successful so far.
Okay, so the motion is specific to the enrichment program and the instructors for the enrichment program that's currently in progress. Right, Michelle?
Yes,
Okay.
so,
Would somebody like?
so I will restate the motion to say, motion to allow the use of the facilities for the current after-school enrichment programs, including enrolled students and instructors.
Would anybody like to second the motion?
I'll second.
Ms. Anderson? And any further discussion?
Madam Chair, could I ask a question as a point of clarification? Are we talking about just the current science program, or if another program is developed, is that included under the motion?
The motion is just for the current science program.
Okay, could I respectfully ask that we state that in the motion?
So I just want to be,
By the way, I'm not against the other. I just want to make sure where we're sitting.
were there two programs? I thought she had mentioned the science, and then I thought I heard that there was another one that had a less.
They're both science programs.
They're both science programs. Okay, I'm sorry. For
They're
the
just run on different days.
Yeah.
All right. So the motion will read to allow the use of the facilities for the current science after school enrichment programs, including enrolled students and instructors.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion? Ms. Anderson, Ms. Karas, Ms. Tam, and myself, motion carries.
The only thing that could be interesting later on is just to mention is that with the vaccination on the doorstep for 5 to 11-year-olds, we could be in a different conversation where we might be able to require attestations from everybody that would be in a school age program, adults and students. And that might make us, I know that would make me feel better about like sports programs and things like that in the future. And that looks like it's possible this year based on what the current news is around the vaccine.
Do any other school committee members want to discuss any other groups, like including the basketball, or should we leave it as is for now?
I would
We don't have to, I mean, without a motion, we don't have to vote upon anything.
just without, just with what I had gone through with soccer and having to have all the safety precautions in place, like I would think that we as a school committee would want to have the same types of things in place. So I think that we would need to have more discussion with it and those protocols. Because like Mr. Parentozzi said, is, there's more than just your current group of kids.
Would you like us to look into, what the other public buildings in Nahant are using as considerations? I mean, I imagine that the town hall is, I imagine that they're taking considerations for indoor meetings or groups activities currently. So we could look at the guidelines that they're using and, develop. We don't have to use those necessarily verbatim, but it could be a starting point because going into the winter months, I anticipate that this might come up again soon.
And other publicly run like recreation programs, like, I know Marblehead has one and Swampscott has one, just in terms of sports and what they're doing.
I think I would be remiss if I didn't remind the members of the school committee that sports activities have been the #1 spreader of close contacts in COVID-19 in the community among youth. Hockey, football, basketball. And it's because, the breadth is so, and, everyone has tried to wear masks during sports activities and found that it's impossible. The kids, particularly elementary kids, they just can't breathe fast enough. And there have been outbreaks in recreation. So I think those activities versus meetings or science, I think they're different. And I really would suggest that we go slow. We've had such a wonderful ability to have school in our community. I think this is one that caution is well founded.
Yeah, I just don't want recreation sports to get a bad rap, because a lot of the things that I'm personally aware of with with the indoor recreation sports is that after recreation time. So I
Good
just would
point.
like to clarify that because, you know, I think it's so important for these kids to get
Yep.
out and be active, and just recognizing that.
That's a very, very good point. I know the last 3 or 4 situations that I've been made aware of, it's actually been the carpool.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
But if we host an activity here and kids are coming from multiple places, they're
Right.
going to be in a car. So, you know, let's go slow, please.
As they are to go to and from school, though. I mean, to your point, plenty of people carpool to go to and from school. Yeah, I'm not suggesting that we vote upon expanding it any further right now. It'd just be worthwhile to start thinking about what, if we were going to expand at any point, what that might look like. So I can look into some of the other towns in the area and what their guidelines are, and just we can discuss it at a future meeting.
Madam Chair, I'll put it on the agenda again.
Thanks. Any other community members that would like to make a comment, or any other community correspondence of the other school committee members? Alrighty, we can move on to the next item of business, which is fiscal year 2023 budget development timeline, which was in the packet.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mhm.
Before I do that, I'd like to go back to a part of the principal's report. I'm not sure, and please stop me, Mr. Andrews, if you mentioned this, but I don't believe the principal highlighted a presentation by MPY on November 1st on creating a trauma-sensitive classroom where all students can thrive. I know several meetings ago, the members of the school committee mentioned we hadn't had any Massachusetts partnerships for youth activities. So I do want to make sure the school committee is aware of the fact that on Monday, the first one of the year will be offered to our staff. Okay. So, Madam Chair, in your packet labeled item
9A.
9A is my feeble attempt at a good budget development calendar. I have sent a preliminary kind of gentle early warning to the chair of the FinCom and copied the town administrator. Basically, it was, you know, we're getting ready to do our budget. And with your permission, if you approve this budget calendar, or if you approve a budget calendar, with the approval of the school committee, I will send this to the town administrator and to the chair of the finance committee when it's approved. They don't have it yet. It's in draft form. But this is pretty consistent with what we do on an annual basis. If you notice, March and April have a whole bunch of TBDs. And that's really because I'm not sure at this point. Some years the finance committee wants us early. Some years the finance committee wants to see us early and then late. 2 meetings, and I just don't know what this year has in store for us. So I wanted to kind of make sure that in our budget development calendar, it had all of the potentials. So that I always like taking meetings off of calendars as compared to adding them on.
I mean, the calendar looks good to me. Is this a calendar that we have to vote upon, or just if we agree?
Madam Chair, typically it is a motion, a second, and a vote because it is one of the primary responsibilities of the school committee is the financial budget. We also should set the public hearing early rather than late.
And that's the one that's currently scheduled for February 15th.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do any of the school committee members have any commentary regarding the current timetable / schedule as it's outlined in our packet?
No, it looks reasonable.
Could somebody make a motion to approve the budget timetable as written?
Motion to,
You can go.
go ahead. Motion to approve the budget committee timetable as listed in the school committee packet.
And I'll second it.
All in favor of approving the timetable as written, Ms. Karas, Ms. Anderson, Ms. Sam, and myself, motion carries.
Madam Chair, I will take the word draft off and I will share with the town administrator and the chair of the finance committee.
Thank you.
And I will send each of the members of the committee a final copy.
Do you want to talk about the ESSER funds that are included in the packet?
Yeah, Madam Chair, at a previous meeting, I believe it was the last meeting, the chair mentioned the ESSER grants. What are we spending money for? The first thing I want to say about these are the actual budgets that we have submitted to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, through which the federal funds flow. So the most important thing to recognize is that these are budgets. They're not granite numbers. They are more soft. You have to submit a budget before they'll send you the money, and then you can amend the budget. We've amended a couple of these already as we find out things that we need. Madam Chair, it's completely up to you. You asked for this, and here it is. I also added the IDEA and Special Education Early Childhood budget and the Summer Acceleration Academy budget. So you would basically see them all. Title 1, 2A, and 4 are also on this sheet. So you can see the budgets of our state and federal funding.
Mr. Parentasi, what is COTA under ESSER 2? COTA?
That is a
Certified occupational therapy assistant.
Got it.
thank you.
Thanks.
In my head, I had a K and I couldn't come up with it instead of a C. We are blessed that we have a master's degree student who works in our school and is being supervised by a certified occupational therapist and physical therapist.
Mhm.
And she's terrific. But technically, she's an assistant. Under the guidelines by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, that is an appropriate person to give services to our students. The real tough thing for us is getting a certified occupational and physical therapist part-time.
Mhm.
It's a huge challenge. So the last few years, we have been able to get one, pay for the supervision process, and fulfill our obligation for our special education students. If we had to go through a third-party service, we would be paying, triple digits per hour.
That's good. Thank you.
So some of the things that are being paid for by ESSER funding, like the school psychologist, well, I imagine that the nurse is additional to what we would normally have just because of the needs during COVID times, right? But like some of the things that we would normally be paying for anyways, the extra money that then opened up in the budget is being reallocated additionally to support the students. I guess I'm just trying to understand that because some of the things that are on the on this ESSER, like under ESSER, that we're using ESSER funds for, I imagine that in a normal school year without ESSER funds, we'd need to be paying for anyways. So it would have been budgeted. Or is this in addition to what would normally be budgeted?
It's really, Madam Chair, it's really a combination. We do have extra psychological services necessary because of what's happened over the last 2 years. We have a higher number of students who need services, and we pay for that. Our real challenge is finding qualified and licensed individuals to provide the services. Right now, for example, we are struggling to find a tutor for a particular student, and we just can't find one. You have witnessed the challenges we have had finding our music teacher. But the short answer is you're absolutely right. We are not spending some budget money, but we're also increasing budget money on things like COVID required trainings and nurses services. I mean, in order to do the program that I explained to you earlier in terms of the COVID testing, we have 3 trained nurses now that are involved in that program.
I mean, and this is, somewhat tangentially associated with this. I know that at the end of the year, we have additional funds that we haven't used, but we have budgeted for that typically will get returned to the town. And so I imagine that having the ESSER funds that, allows for that even more so, because I don't know that we would necessarily use all the funds. So I just want to make sure that if there are any needs identified, for the staff or students that, in a typical year might be challenging to meet with our current budget and I just don't know. I mean, I don't know what other things, it could be used for, but I just look at this as an opportunity where we generally seem to be able to meet our budget needs. And so because of the extra money, like how else can we better support, the students and staff, the staff with the training and the students with the educational supports that they need.
Yeah, I think that's it's a great track to take. Staff members are not plentiful to do this. So we have spent some money, additional monies on technology programs that students can do at home. And we frankly have been pretty focused on meeting our basic needs with, filling all the positions that we need to fill our schedule. And now hopefully we have done that. Unfortunately, if you remember, this is the 3rd time we've done that. And hopefully this time it will actually be the final time. So we can kind of turn our attention to expanding those services. There's not a lot of interest in vacation camps, either by parents, guardians, and children or by staff. We did run a very beefed up summer program this year. And we're turning our attention to after-school possibilities
Yeah, I
now.
was thinking about that. Yeah.
One thing that's important to keep in mind too with ESSER funds is that they are not unrestricted.
No,
So
right.
they're restricted for certain lanes. And because it's sort of one size fits all, but districts are not one size fits all, that the lanes that are important for one district or the way that they tackle challenges is going to be different than another district, right? So one thing that folks are doing is they're using ESSER funds for what they can use ESSER funds for. And that might be an area that we typically can put funds towards, right? And then you take those funds that have been replaced by ESSER funds and you put them into an area that you really need that ESSER funds won't fill, right? So I don't know, I'm not speaking for you, Tony. I'm just saying that it's just two other considerations to take into account around, just a little bit of the coverage game that superintendents have to play to try to get everything done with this money.
Yeah.
So something that we have brought up at a previous meeting, and I don't know that we have reviewed it, was that poll, right? That parents, I don't know how many people filled it out, but there was a poll that was sent out, because I'm just thinking to myself, I don't know what everybody thinks that's needed. And, certainly, Mr. Andrews, I would look to you to identify what the, students and staff needs, but also the parents in the community. And we did this poll. So is that information being used to, fill in those gaps?
Madam Chair, absolutely. And I appreciate everyone. I think we had over 50 respondents, which is great. It's probably a third of the student body was represented by the respondents. And we are using that to guide us in terms of how we use the funds and how they're going to be best used to support the students and the school as a whole. I'm certainly someone who's going to be thinking about how can we shift resources and push it forward and use what we have now where we can now, and then put other resources in the future so that we can kind of spread the money in towards of future endeavors, basically.
Mr. Andrews, is that something that you could share with us at a future meeting?
The results of the poll?
Yeah.
Certainly. We could certainly share that.
Thanks. I just feel like that would be useful for us, and even just budget developing, right? Am I just speaking?
Sure, yeah. It speaks to what,
parents identify as being important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Mr. Andrews, the poll was done as part of the community engagement requirement that's part of ESSER 3. Is that true?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Madam Chair, to address some of your question, a piece of it, I have scheduled the Mary DeGuardia, our Director of Special Education, to make a presentation to the school committee next meeting.
Okay.
And you'll see some new programs in there for some of our students with the highest need and risk.
Great.
So I'm sure you'll be very pleased. Mary will be presenting a PowerPoint and also speaking to you in response to your question.
Thank you. Do any other school committee members have any other questions or comments in regards to the ESSER grant budgeting? And we already discussed the facility use, which is item 9C. So we can move on to 9D, which is policy GCG-R substitute pay.
Yes, Madam Chair. There's two things going on right now in terms of policies. One, in an unscientific way, policies come to my attention that are outdated and need updating. And two, we are semi-diligently working on recrafting the entire policy manual, all 200 and whatever pages of it. And that's a massive task. Right now, we have all the policies that the school committee has updated over the last 5 or 6 years, identified, renumbered, the index has been renumbered, and now we're in the process of actually doing a polished copy of it. So as we were doing that, I noted that you had a policy that identified a substitute pay rate that was extraordinarily outdated. It predates me. So in your packet, you have two things. One is policy, and you can see that this policy was previously page 151 and now will be page 164. But you have the current policy, and then you have my attempt at a more accurate policy. That our daily rate for a substitute is a minimum of $85 a day. And I would suggest to you, if I have to pay more than that for a substitute nurse, for example, you want me to do that. And frankly, I have been doing it since I got here because it's impossible to get a nurse to work for $85 a day. And 3 of you school committee members are in the medical industry, so you recognize how impossible that is. And then there would be the possibility of me having to pay, and again, a nurse is a good example. So I added a potential sentence that says a substitute rate of pay may be increased at the discretion of the superintendent, but may not exceed the daily rate of a full-time B step 1 teacher. So it's capped. So what this really means is that no substitute will ever make more than a teacher. That's basically what it says.
Makes sense.
And Madam Chair, as a reminder, if you so chose, you can take this policy under advisement, not do anything. Or you could ask for comments now, or you could simply ask members of the committee to accept it. But the Mass General Law requires 2 readings of a policy before you can approve it. So a minimum would be this evening and the next meeting at your discretion, Madam Chair. Or you can throw it away and say, we don't like it, come back with something else.
Does anybody have any comments or questions in regards to the policy right now? If there's no comments, can we put it on the agenda for the next meeting then? To be
Absolutely. Madam
discussed?
Chair, with your permission, I will label the policy that I wrote as the first reading with today's date.
So sorry, on the next agenda, it'll be the second reading.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. And I think that brings us to the end of new business. Are there any, I saw a resume in our packet, in one of the packets. Is there any personnel matters?
Yes, there is a huge personnel matter. After several unsuccessful attempts, I am pleased to let you know that I have a signed letter of appointment from Isabella Walsh. Her resume is in the packet for you with all of the required redactions. And we had hoped that Isabella, or Ms. Walsh rather, would have started this Thursday, but it is impossible for her to accommodate that. So she will be starting next Thursday, November 4th.
Sorry, in what role?
Pardon me?
And I'm sorry, and you probably mentioned this, I'm just missing it. In what role?
Oh, she will be our .2 FTE music teacher.
Oh, okay. There was a lot in her resume about librarians, so I didn't know if this had to do with the library. Okay. Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
In the relevant experience section, you see that she was a student
Yeah.
at the Longhi School of Music, the
Yeah.
student at the Rivers Conservatory, and a Salem Youth Symphony member. And then early in her tenure, Mr. Andrews will be talking to her about band, orchestra, after-school activities, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, good.
And we
Oh,
have
that's
been
so great.
we have been sorely missing.
That's great. Yeah, the kids have been asking about a music teacher. That's so great.
And I just
Um,
got a thumbs up from Ms. Flaherty. All right.
Any other personnel matters?
Madam Chair, at this time, I believe we are fully staffed.
Amazing.
A little late, but yeah, a real little one.
I mean, I'm sure there are lots of schools that are not even there yet, so we're in good shape.
Every meeting I go to, Madam Chair, the number one complaint from superintendents, assistant superintendents in charge of curriculum, personnel.
Staffing, yeah. How are we doing on substitute teachers?
I'll say that we're well-staffed in that area as
Oh,
well.
great.
Yeah, we really haven't had a shortage at this time. We have a short list, but we don't need a long one for our school
No.
because we have such great attendance at the school and also a small staff.
Great.
And so we really haven't had any problems with paraprofessionals being uncovered or even teachers.
Oh,
So,
great.
yeah.
And thankfully, we don't need bus drivers.
That's right.
Um,
And the kids are all agreeable, so nobody scares them away.
All right, how about business from the committee?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the acceptance of a non-resident student who is a child of a staff member.
I have a second to the motion.
And I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor of approving the motion as written? Ms. Dam, Ms. Anderson, Ms. Karas, and myself. Motion carries. Any other business from the committee? Seeing no other business, can I ask for a motion to adjourn into executive session, not to reconvene to open session at 8:58? Oh, and the reason to adjourn would be to conduct a strategy session in preparation for negotiations with union personnel. Would somebody like to make the motion?
I'll make a motion to reconvene into, oh gosh, I'm gonna get the
Executive session.
executive session, not to reconvene into open session to discuss negotiations with the NTA at 8:59 p.m.
Can I have a second?
I second the motion made by Ms. Karas.
All in favor? Ms. Anderson, Ms. Karas, Sam, and myself. All right, we'll adjourn. Mr. Andrews, before you leave, do you want me to communicate to John Sherlock? Because it looked like he had initially communicated with you regarding the facility use for basketball.
John Locke.
Oh, John Locke. Yep,
Yeah.
other John.
Jonathan Locke. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. What was the outcome?
Yeah, we're not going to open it up to sports at this point.
I'll get back to him.
All right.
Or, I mean, did he communicate with you actually directly?
He communicated with you and then he reached out
Yes.
to me. So I'll just communicate with you, him, that's fine. Because at the end of the
Okay.
day, it was whether or not that we opened it up to community use for sports, and the answer
Yeah,
is
it wasn't
no.
really my
So-
jurisdiction.
Yes.
And that's why
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did.
I'll just let you know
Yeah.
then that I'm gonna answer his request.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Good.
Folks think that I do everything and I don't do
Oh.
everything. So I just,
That's fair.
I wanted to let him know, I'm not, it's not open, but it's not up to me.
Yeah,
And
right.
that's why I did forward the information about who it's up to
Sure.
him.
I'll respond to him.
Thank
John
you.
Block. Thanks, Mr. Andrews. Have a good night.
My pleasure. Good night. Good luck with your meeting.
All right, I'm just gonna stop the recording.